Song Yadong lost, and it was not even close to being a robbery. It's not even questionable. The fact that people are saying Sean O'Malley robbed or the judges robbed Song Yadong either are just following the train of what Holloway said, or they just don't know the sport, or they weren't looking close enough. And I'm about to prove why he didn't get robbed and why Sean O'Malley did win the fight. We're going to be going in depth, in detail, of the significant strikes between the two and the possible game plans and mindsets that they both try to capitalize on one another. So we're going to start with the stats of the fight first of all. Take a close look at the stats here. I want you to take a look at these red bars. If you haven't noticed yet, the red line is higher than the blue line, and that's just me being kind of a sarcastic asshole, but what that means is Song Yadong was outstruck in round 1 and he was outstruck in round 3. On points, he lost those rounds just based on strikes. The round and the way the scorecards are right now is actually how I had it in the fight. I had Sean O'Malley winning round 1. I did have Song Yadong winning round 2, and I had O'Malley taking it in round 3. Look, there's a reason why a lot of the YouTube analysts had Sean O'Malley winning by decision, because whether people know it or not, they subconsciously know how Song Yadong was likely going to lose. It probably wasn't going to be by a knockout. Song Yadong is really good, and I'm saying he lost, and he's one of my favorite people on the UFC roster right now to watch. Literally one of my favorites. He's so good. He can grapple, he can strike. He has relatively no weaknesses at all. He's entertaining, and there's a lot of things that I can sympathize with in his fighting style. So this is coming from somebody who kind of wanted Song Yadong to get the win, because even though I don't think he's going to beat Peter Yan, he kind of reminds me of a lesser Peter Yan right now. And let's start with why people might think it's a robbery. So one of the first reasons why people might think it's a robbery is because Song Yadong was throwing power shots, only power shots. It looks like Song Yadong was going for the finish more than O'Malley was, and there's some truth in that. The fact that he was only throwing power shots shows that he was trying to get the KO and catch O'Malley. O'Malley wasn't necessarily trying to do that the entire fight. He was content with jabbing and keeping at range, which is a good game plan. That's the game plan you have when you're a lanky or taller fighter. So I think the fact that people seen that O'Malley, not that he wasn't necessarily trying to finish it, he was just taking his time more, and Yadong was every single punch he threw, it was to try and catch O'Malley and knock him out cold. I think the grappling could have played a factor into it as well. Like if we look back at the stats here, we can see he had 2 minutes of control time. I forget if it was actually on the ground or if it was up against the fence, and regardless, it's still there. It's still a factor in the fight. And before, I didn't make a video on it, didn't get to it time, but I thought if he did grapple more, that would play a big favor into his hand. But he unfortunately had trouble pinning O'Malley down, not physically, but just pinning him down in the sense of not being able to allow O'Malley away from the cage. So let's get into what each fighter struggled with. Song Yadong struggled closing the distance on O'Malley and trying to corner him against the fence to really unload the shots that he was wanting to in the fight. And that's what subconsciously most people knew, even the YouTube analysts, whoever, the people who pick Sean O'Malley. They might not have been able to put it into words, and a lot of them would, but when the shorter fighter, who's a power puncher, is going up against someone who can move really well, who's lankier, taller, and has really good striking as well, the shorter fighter is really going to struggle. It's one of the hardest things to do if you're the shorter striker. I know from experience. That's why I say I can sympathize. Not only just some things of the style, but having to deal with someone like O'Malley in this fight. So let's go over which each fighter's game plan probably was and what they were probably thinking while they were in there. Song's whole game plan was to throw power shots and eventually catch O'Malley. And he did catch O'Malley a few times, but it didn't put him out. And Unfortunately, that's just not enough when you're going up against a fighter like O'Malley. Not only is he taller, he moves extremely well. He's so hard to pin down, and he's a great striker himself, an elite striker himself as well. So just throwing power shots is just, you're depending on getting lucky. That's what you're dependent on, right, in that fight, right? If you're a shorter fighter going against someone taller in the gear, and your whole idea, well, I'm gonna pick my shots, but all of my shots are gonna be to knock you out. You are actively depending on just luck, because even if you're accurate with your shots, you could hit someone as hard as you want, and man, you could clock them, but whether they go out or not, it's kind of a luck game, man. You don't know if you're gonna knock someone out cold, even if it's your best shot you can give them. Sometimes they go down, sometimes they don't. So that's what he was kind of gambling on this fight. Sean's game plan was pretty clear. He wanted to keep the fight. He didn't want to fight in the pocket with Song Yadong, which is smart. Like, why would he? He can keep it at distance, and he can outstrike Song Yadong on the outside, move around, move laterally, leg kick, jab, you know, occasionally explode in with the cross, and maybe get Yadong out of there himself. To me, that was just the obvious game plan for Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley's game plan was a lot more obvious than what Yadong's would have been. Of course, Yadong's was pretty obviously because a lot of people predicted it correctly, but if he was going to win, he was going to have to get a lot more creative than just trying to pick well-timed power shots. So now that we've gone over what both fighters' game plans probably were, let's go over what Yadong probably could have done to have better his chances of pulling off the win or getting a decision. His main focus should have been to get in on O'Malley, get in the pocket, get him up against the fence. So, how could he have done that? You're probably expecting me to give you an answer. And the answer is, I don't really have one, because I've been in the same situation where you're fighting someone taller, lankier, elite striking as well, and it's so hard to get on somebody taller, but not only that, but that can move really well, and you're the shorter fighter. Now, most coaches are going to tell you the basic, well, you just get your head off the center line and you jab in. Like, and yeah, you can do that, but that's not stopping the taller fighter from moving backwards or moving away from you from either side. That's what annoys me when people say that. Like, this is how you get on a taller fighter. Okay, well, what if the taller fighter moves back? What if the taller fighter moves to the left or to the right? You still have to chase him, and you just double jabbed into nothing. They're still at the same range. They're still at the same distance that they were before you jabbed in. And in fact, if you've backed them up against the fence far enough, you just gave them an outing because you went straight, whereas they took this. Let me try to. Yeah. You went straight, and then instead of trying to chase them around and really pin them, when you went dedicated to the linear movement and double jabbed in, they took the angle off and went this way or this way. So then you have to restart what you did. So no, it's not as simple as just getting your head off the line and jabbing inwards. Yeah, that's a tactic, but not only in boxing, but in MMA, it's so much more complex than that. You can't just do that. Now, here's what he could have done, but this would have been asking so much, and for him to really have the most solid mindset, mental fortitude that you've ever seen in the octagon. And it requires him to have a huge arsenal in his game. Like, there's so many different complex things. What I would have thought of to have to deal with someone like O'Malley is, yes, you can double jab and get your head off the center line. Yes, that's a given. But you have to have more than that. You have to have leg kicks. And I think Yadong did leg kick, but I think they got checked if I'm remembering correctly. Let me see if it's on the stats real quick. Yeah, Yadong did throw leg kicks. But that's not enough either, because Sean O'Malley is an elite striker. He'll start to check those leg kicks, and it's going to make you not want to throw them. So you can't just get your head off the center line and jab in. And leg kicks, it helps, especially if you throw the jabs and you feint the jabs and then throw the leg kicks, so they're not just naked leg kicks. But what would be even better is if you had different kinds of leg kicks. So, example, Alex Pereira throws leg kicks very different than anyone else. They're calf kicks. He throws them with no tail. He's not loading them up like Thai fighters do. It's just bam, just straight shot. And I'm tossing a photo up to show an example of that. But then you can also have the leg kicks that are very Thai style, like how Jose Aldo throws his leg kicks. You have different kinds of leg kicks you can throw while also mixing in your jabs and your feints. Then that becomes a very, very different fight, I think. But at that point, it's like, are you creating a fighter, if you know what I mean? That's not Song Yadong. He don't throw calf kicks like that. I'm not saying that he couldn't have learned it for the fight, but to think that a fighter and their coaches are going to completely change a way someone kicks for a period of time is kind of, it's not unrealistic, and I think it should be more it should happen a lot more in the MMA game, but the reality of it probably happening is very slim. You would have to have some extremely high IQ coaches and fighters to be able to game plan like that. And I'm not saying that his aren't, but most coaches want you to kind of be yourself. It's either it's one or the other. It's a kind of a problem in the game. They either let you be yourself a little too much, which isn't a bad thing. That's more a positive than the other, which is just too strict. They try to force their style upon you. I would rather have a coach that lets me be myself. But if you have a fighter who has a high IQ, they can implement things like that, and that might just be asking too much. But if that were to happen, I think he would have beat O'Malley most likely, because when someone's good at moving like that, you can't just jab in. You have to get them to stop moving. And the way you do that is hurting their leg, making them not want to move on it as much. So now that we're talking about that, let's move on to what O'Malley did, or what he struggled with. And he really didn't struggle, in my opinion. Yeah, he got tagged a few times, but that's fighting. You're going to get tagged, and that's just the reality. I think he did everything perfectly. He didn't find the KO, but he also was not going to fight in the pocket. That would have been stupid. Sean O'Malley fought his fight, and he fought it extremely well. Even if you try to jab in and get your head off the center line, you're running the risk of running into something like this, because if you do that so many times, somebody like O'Malley is going to probably try this out on the second time you try that. That's just the reality. You have to get so creative with someone like O'Malley in there. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to throwing different kinds of leg kicks, throwing in jabs to get in, body kicks. Song Yadong was attacking. Oh, hold on. I didn't show the knee. Let me show the knee real quick. Yeah, you could run into something like that if you overdo the jabbing with your head off the center line inwards. Anyway, Song Yadong was not attacking Sean O'Malley's movement. And that was the first mistake from the beginning. If you're fighting someone like O'Malley, Yadong was headhunting. And if you're the shorter fighter, you can't do that. And it's kind of frustrating. That goes into the mentalities that the fighters might have, because Song Yadong, even if their game plan was to attack Sean O'Malley's movement, and that means attacking the leg kicks, but also if Sean O'Malley's going this way, go ahead and toss the lead hook that way, go ahead and toss a body kick the other way, a body kick the other way if he's going that way. It's a 3-rounder, and that could have been going through Song's head, and he could have been like, well, I don't have time for all that. If it was a 5-rounder, maybe, but I don't have time to try to attack the movement, which is going to eventually lead to the KO shot. That's what you got to think is going through the fighters' heads. I don't think much was going through O'Malley's head, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, he was doing what he was doing, and he was very successful with it. Song was the one that was trying to adapt and failed to do so. So not only did Song lose round 1 and round 3, he headhunted for the most part. He was only throwing power shots. He didn't have a very complex game plan, and unfortunately he paid the price for that, and that's why he lost. It was not a robbery. The fight was competitive relatively, but to me, Sean O'Malley won clear. I mean, they're both high-level fighters, but there was no robbery, and I don't think there was any way Song Yadong could have got that victory, could have got the nod from the judges. The only round he won was round 2, and that's not me just basing off of the scorecard, the stats here. It's what I actually thought when I was watching the fight. So yeah, maybe that can clear up all the arguments going on online right now. Song Yadong's one of my favorite fighters, but he did not win, and it was not a robbery. It wasn't even close to being a robbery. So if you liked this video, I have others just like it and more on the way. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. Bye.